uh, were in Utah, and they were convicted of horrific child abuse. They each got 30 years for just unbelievable child abuse that I mean, it was terrible. These children, they were chained up. They had duct tape on their little ankles. The only reason I think they really lived is because the 12-year-old boy he snuck out a window and went running to a neighbor's house to get help. It was very sad. It was a horrible, horrible situation. And so this made world news. This was reported all, throughout the English speaking world, and probably a lot of the non-English speaking world, because of how, yeah, I know, because of how horrific it was. So I was learning about this. I was learning about this case, and I discovered there's a huge paranormal element to this case. And I had no idea. I'd been hearing about this case all the way from the time when the little boy escaped, to when these women were being prosecuted, to when they were finally sentenced. And it was only just this past week that I learned that there's a huge paranormal aspect to this case. So one of the women, Jody Hildebrandt, who was the business partner, not the mother, she reported that she was seeing black shadow people. And that really caught my attention, because I actually, I did see a black shadow creature. And my dog, Flower, over here, you can, that one there, she made contact with a black shadow person. And it was about 5:30 in the morning. I got up to go to work. I let her out, and I saw a black shadow up against the wall in the backyard. And it had 4 legs, but the front legs were much longer. And I couldn't tell what it was. I just woke up. I thought, that's a weird looking coyote. What is that? And Flower saw it too. And she went racing for it. And I thought, oh no. And she made contact with it. And the minute she made contact with it, she started screaming bloody murder. I mean, I literally watched my roommate and all my neighbors' bedroom lights turn on, because it was so loud. It sounded like the dog was being murdered. And I thought, oh no, the dog's going to come back bloodied. I mean, is she getting decapitated? All of these thoughts are going through my head. What time is it? It's 5:30. Where's the emergency vet? I've got to be to work. All these thoughts. So she's screaming bloody murder, just horrific. I mean, it was blood curdling. And I'm preparing myself. And she comes back, doesn't have a scratch on her. Not at all. I inspected her, head to toe, or head to tail. Not a scratch on her. It was very scary. It was very weird. I did not believe in shadow people or shadow anything. And I'd heard about shadow people and the hat man. I'd heard about all of that. I didn't have any personal experience with that. I do now. So when this child abuser, Jody Hildebrandt, when she starts talking that she was seeing these black shadow figures, and that was about maybe 15 miles away from where I lived at the time. That really got my attention. So I started digging in further. And then I listened to the interview that the husband of this Ruby, Frankie, it was her children. Her husband gave an interview to the police. And about 40, 50 minutes into the interview is when he says that he felt like the resident exorcist. And I think I sent you an article if you wanted to put that up so people could see. Anyway, Kevin Frankie went on to say that he felt like the resident exorcist because this Jody woman who had seen the shadow people, she was going into trances that when she moved into their home, they started hearing footsteps and voices, and that plates started flying out and flying across the room. And this man was an engineer, a civil engineer at BYU, I think. So, for him to be saying, that he had witnessed all of these things with no explanation and telling this to police, um, that really got my attention. And then apparently this Ruby, it was her children, this really, really bad Mormon mommy, she apparently was having these mystical experiences and these visions and these dreams. And so that is Ruby Frank and her husband Kevin. And then I think I sent you a link where he said he felt like the resident exorcist. So when they let Jody, the friend, move into their home, Jody was going into trances. I mean, all of this really bizarre paranormal stuff. Ruby started to go and sleep in the bedroom with her because she was so terrified of these paranormal experiences that they were having. And the husband, Frank, he was performing priesthood blessings per the LDS Church to try to exorcise these demons. So it was fascinating.
So hold up. The Ruby was a vlogger with 2 million YouTube fans.
Yes. So yes. So Ruby and her husband, Frank, they had 6 children and they were vloggers and they were making millions of dollars a year from their vlog, based on their family, and it was called 6 Passengers. And apparently this was a really popular vlog. Millions, they had million. I think I read it had over 1 billion views at one point.
Yeah, I mean they probably put the subscription number here, but that doesn't mean the viewership number. They probably have 2 million subscribers, something like that. But
Yeah.
I mean, holy shit.
Yeah. So they were making millions of dollars with this vlog, this family vlog that they were doing, and it was called 6 Passengers. And it was going great, and they were just raking in the money until Jody, who was a therapist, came on the scene. And she started giving them advice on how to discipline their children. And one time, the discipline was that the oldest son could not sleep in his bed. He had to either, I think he had to sleep on a beanbag for a month or something. That was his punishment. And that was so unpopular with their audience who was watching their, 6 Passengers vlog, that viewership dropped drastically. And that was really the point, the turning point in their vlogging career, where their income just really plummeted. And so that caused them a lot of stress. And then the husband really started to dislike this Jody woman who was the therapist. But the wife, Ruby, was getting a lot of support from this woman, Jody. Right. But it was, so fast forward, Ruby and Frank end up separating after their vlog fell apart and their millions of dollars in income fell apart. Ruby gets full custody of 4 of their kids because I think the 2 oldest ones were gone. And she was basically torturing the 2 youngest. Yep, there they are. So then she went into business with Jody, and that's Ruby there.
She has that
shirt. Mommy there.
The one in the red. That's the one.
That's the mom.
And she's got those eyes.
Crazy Eyes.
Yeah, but that lady next to her is she's calculated.
She is. I think you're very right. And that was Jody, who is the therapist. And so after the Ruby's family vlog took a nosedive based on Jody's advice, Jody and Ruby started their own channel together, and it was advice on it was advice on raising children and families
Yeah.
because Jody was a therapist. But then it turns out Ruby's two youngest children were being tortured at Jody's house. Jody had a multi-million-dollar house that's on the market now for $5 million in
Ooh.
Ivans. Yeah. And nobody has still addressed how a therapist was living in a $5.5 million home. I mean, therapists are great, but they
But
don't
didn't make
kind of
that
money.
much money.
No, they don't. I mean, even the husband said that in his interview with the police. You know, the first time he went to her house, he was wondering, how is she making so much money to live here as a therapist? And he was an engineer.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know. w- Me and my girlfriend have a combined income of like 100,000. Um, it's more than that, but I'm just gonna leave it there. And like with we can't even get a fucking apartment.
yeah,
How
I
does
know.
this lady have a $5 million home?
Yeah, and then so the home was originally put on the market for 5.5 million. They had to drop it down to only 5, and it is the most viewed home right now on realtor.com.
Maybe we'll have to take a look into that one, see if we can get
Yeah,
approved.
well, that's where she was seeing the shadow people, and that's where
Well,
the
it says right here, Mr. Frank, 45, said that he started believing something disturbing was going on when the couple took a trip to Hildebrandt Living's home.
yeah,
And I'm assuming that's this $5 million home.
it is.
The engineer claimed, now this is an engineer who
Yeah,
seems to be the most logical and reasonable of the bunch, claimed that there are plates flying off the shelves by themselves at full speed,
yeah,
smashing onto the wall or floor.
yeah. At this $5 million home, $5.5 million home. Um, yeah, so that was the home where they wound up tying up and torturing these poor kids. And I do think that they probably were on their way to murdering those children. The mother, Ruby, who was just totally cuckoo, she kept a diary, and she entered in her diary. I mean, she was recording torture that she was doing to her own
So
children.
do you think there's a possible so do you think it's possible that now it's funny because I'm working on like a movie of witchcraft and
Mhm.
I just I can't help but start thinking that either I okay, either she's loony, she loses her money, and she just loses her sanity. And that right, it's prosaically explained. She mentally had a breakdown. Now let's take a step back and put some alternatives out there. Was this other woman dabbling in something that at her house plates would fly across the room and apparently once they met her, I'm reading here, it ends with the weirdest crap started happening. um you know uh so once they meet this lady, could they have been introduced and hitchhiked, like the hitchhiker effect? Could that have been something that happened? And could she have been jumped, possessed, Um, I don't know. I mean,